Your art style, your fingerprint as an artist. For most of my art career, I didn't really think I had a style of my own. I suppose I had an anime style, but I'd mostly been drawing other people's characters for work. Hardly made anything that really said me at first glance. It wasn't really until recently that I decided I wanted to make a style for myself. So in this video, I'd like to share with you the 5 steps I took to developing my art style fast. If you're still starting out, developing a unique art style for yourself doesn't need to be a priority. In my time at art school, I definitely saw folks struggling to learn new techniques because they were so set in staying in the art style they'd made for themselves. Adhering too much to a style early on might ingrain habits that could impede progress down the line. But hey, as long as you remember to be flexible in learning new things, you shouldn't have that problem. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Who are your primary inspirations? Every artist has their favorites. Whether it be from a TV show, comic book, or an artist you've seen online, there are styles that just resonate with you. Lately, my influences are Kei Urana's Gachiakata, Yuto Sano's Gokurakugai, and Bonesaw's Shogunned. Gather images from 2 to 3 of your top influences and assemble them into boards. These will be our walls of inspiration. Specify. What specifically do you like about their work? Eye shape, body proportions, rendering techniques, color choices? Make note of what specific elements inspire you from each artist. I love the bold and gritty maximalism of Gachiakata, and Yuto Sano's stylized faces on semi-real bodies. With Bonesaw's work, I like it for similar reasons to Gachiakata, but it's got a much more animatable approach to it. It doesn't get overly complicated. These are all elements that I want to see in my own work, which is the main idea of getting into specifics. What about their work do you want to see in yours? Analyze. Try to follow the steps that your inspirations take when they make art. If possible, gather sketches, speed paints, and work in progresses from your inspirations. Seeing the processes by which they construct their work can give you insight onto how you can approach yours. Alright, let's take a look at Yuto Sano's Twitter. Also forgive me, I'm recording this in the early morning and I'm trying not to be too loud. Absolutely love this guy's work. What we're looking for right now is sketches, time lapses. Here's one. Looks like this is a time-lapse of his line work. The sketch seems pretty developed, which makes me think this is like a second pass. Let's find another one. You can see here he's the kind of guy to sketch out the anatomy and then draw the clothes on top. Which, hey, same. So he tries to figure out the pose with the base anatomy first before trying to figure out the clothes. Another sketch. And definitely exemplifies what we were talking about before. You can see there's some light lines here of the anatomy. You can see he's like sketched the pecs. Even though it's not going to be visible, he still draws out the anatomy as he knows it first and then puts the clothes on top. Alright, let's move on. Kei Urana. Let's see if she's got any speed paints. She's definitely got a lot of sketches here. And as far as sketches go, these are very polished. There's those bold lines. Again, this is something I really like about her work. These bold outlines. And these like striking shapes. She seems to really just go at the pose. But it's pretty unlike Yuto Sano, where he would draw the base anatomy first. She seems to go like straight into it and then polishes it later on. Now this is a really cool sketch done. She gets really exaggerated here. The foreshortening, the angle. Really love poses that play with depth. Looking at the outlines of the hands here, it's very angular, very sharp. It really makes for a more striking silhouette, and that's what I want to see in my own work. Alright, now we're taking a look at Bonesaw. Immediately, there are some similarities. I really love his use of the color black. Very bold, and it really emphasizes the colors that he does choose. This is a really cool character design, very strong silhouette. You could really see very exaggerated hands and feet, which is something I think is really cool because I feel like exaggerating the hands and feet lead to more impactful action poses. Like you could see in this little sketch here, the giant hands just make a much cooler pose to me. It's overall just really cool. And that's the goal. The main goal of all of my drawing is to make something cool. This character has some very fun anatomy. These legs are obviously far longer than the torso. I like the way they narrow at the knees but widen again as they go down to the feet. Very striking. From the sketch, it looks like this character is supposed to be some kind of runner, very like speed-oriented character. So having like exaggeratedly long legs would make for really cool poses. This is a really rad piece. I love the bold grit of these lines. Look at these lines. The use of solid black for the clothes, because usually when you draw something, you add like little details, you add the color, you add shading, but with solid black, you don't really get that. You can't really get that. So to define the form of it, you really have to rely on its silhouette. Very sharp, very angular. And this posing just has so much energy. Once again, foreshortening. He's like jumping at the viewer. I love that. Alright, time to go back to when I'm not whispering. Breakdown and replication. Break down their work into basics to reverse engineer their style. An in-depth way to understand a style is to break it down to its base construction. Does the artist primarily use hard angular shapes, soft and round shapes? What are the tendencies of their color choices? A great way to try and understand these things better is to try to replicate the elements that you want as close as you can. In my case, I wanted to focus on the construction of the faces and bodies of all of these artists. I'd recommend going through this process a handful of times to really get a sense of what you're looking for. Experiment, mix, and match. Take your favorite elements from each artist and combine them into an original composition. Now that you better understand the elements, it's time to try putting them together in practice. For this part, I'm going to be designing some original characters, but making fan art or drawing an OC you've already got should work just the same. The main idea is to practice and to see what works. Now, keep in mind, what makes your art style successful here is not necessarily in how much it adheres to your influences, but in your personal enjoyment. And what you come up with now may very well evolve drastically over time. For some quick character ideas, I use the website rangen.co.uk. It's a non-AI generator that gives you a list of randomized ideas for a character. First character we got here is Leon, 7-year-old kid that likes to play board games and has the power to control butterflies. I think this was a good first attempt at playing with the style. I really enjoyed the sharp and bold outlines, as well as the exaggerated proportions of the hands and feet. I think the way I stylized the hair also makes for a really interesting silhouette. The other character that I made is Mauricio. From the description that I got, I imagined an assassin that got called into work on their day off. I think I came up with something really striking here. I like the juxtaposition between the workout clothes and the hitman's gun and trench coat. And of course, main things I took away from the studies are the exaggerated proportions and the bold outlines. I hope you found these tips useful. And of course, if anything doesn't work for you, feel free to try anything else. These are not hard rules in trying to figure out an art style. These are all just merely suggestions, all things that work for me. So if you figure out anything that works for you, let me know about it in the comments. I'd love to hear about your process. Hope to see you next time in another tutorial? Can I call this a tutorial? Hope to see you next time in another video. By the way, this is my intern. She doesn't talk much. Okay, bye.